You may be buying a lot of food, but still missing the 5 items that are worth stockpiling first. In this video, we'll take a look at 5 everyday foods that many experienced long-term preppers tend to buy before almost anything else. Not because they're expensive or hard to find, but because they address some of the most basic needs in a kitchen: creating meals, stretching a budget, adding nutrition, and helping families rely less on constant trips to the grocery store. What's interesting is that most of these items are still sitting on supermarket shelves every day. Many people walk right past them without realizing they can provide dozens or even hundreds of meals at a very low cost. Some can be stored for a very long time. Some make other foods easier to eat. And some quietly fill nutritional gaps that many food stockpiles tend to overlook. By the end of this list, you may not buy more food, but you may buy smarter. 5. Salt. The cheapest item in the supermarket, but possibly the most valuable thing in the kitchen. Adults are generally recommended to consume no more than about 2,300 milligrams of sodium per day, which is roughly equal to 1 teaspoon of salt. What's surprising is that most of that sodium does not come from the salt shaker on the table. It comes from bread, processed foods, canned goods, and fast food. In other words, we're used to salt always being there without ever having to think about it. Salt is more than just a seasoning. It becomes something that helps keep an entire kitchen functioning. That's one reason many experienced long-term preppers always put a container of salt in their cart before thinking about more expensive items. That may sound strange. A basic container of salt often costs about the same as a takeout coffee, typically around $1 to $3, depending on the type and the store. But unlike a cup of coffee that lasts only a few minutes, a container of salt can be used in hundreds of family meals. When measured by value per dollar, very few foods in the supermarket can compete with it. We often assume that the most important foods are canned meat, rice, or bottled water. In reality, those items address only part of the picture. A pot of plain rice without any seasoning can become boring very quickly. A pot of boiled beans with no flavor may cause many people to start skipping meals after just a few days, even when there is still plenty of food in the house. A crisis does not always cause people to run out of food first. Many times, it causes them to lose their desire to eat first. This can be even more noticeable among older adults. As appetite declines, the body becomes tired, or daily medications become part of life. A meal that is too bland can easily be left unfinished. Eating less means less energy, less protein, and slower recovery. That does not mean the saltier the food, the better. A small pinch of salt does not perform miracles, but it helps a meal still feel like a meal. The second value of salt is discussed even less. Long before the world had refrigerators and reliable electricity, people used salt to preserve meat, fish, and vegetables for weeks or even months. Long sea voyages, harsh winters, and communities living far from cities all depended on that simple principle. Today, we have refrigerators, but refrigerators depend entirely on electricity. All it takes is an extended power outage, a major storm, or a grid failure to understand why such an ordinary ingredient was once considered a valuable asset. Imagine the clock reads 8 o'clock at night. The power has been out for more than 6 hours. There is still a little meat, a few pieces of fish, and some vegetables left in the refrigerator. On the shelf, there is only rice, dry beans, and a container of salt. You cannot create a feast, but you can still cook a pot of hot rice, a simple pot of beans, and make use of the remaining food before it turns into waste. That is the difference between preparation and panic. Another advantage that makes salt popular among many preppers is its virtually unlimited shelf life. Rice can attract insects if stored improperly. Dry beans can gradually become harder over time. Powdered milk requires careful attention to moisture. Salt is different. As long as it is kept in a sealed container, stored in a dry place and protected from humidity, its quality remains virtually unchanged for many years. No constant rotation required. No refrigeration required. No electricity required. No special conditions required. Salt also has a very unique ability. It helps prevent flavor fatigue. Throughout many periods of history, salt was valuable enough to be used for trade and even as payment for labor. That was not because it was rare, but because everyone needed it every day. Today, a container of salt may cost only a few dollars, but that does not reduce its true value. The items people use every day are often the first ones they miss when supplies begin to be disrupted. People who have to eat the same group of foods for several days usually do not get tired of them because there is not enough food. They get tired of them because everything starts to taste the same. Simply adjusting the amount of salt and combining it with pepper, garlic, or a few dried herbs can make the same pot of beans or bowl of rice feel like a completely different meal. That may sound like a small thing, but for people who live alone or for older adults, the desire to eat can sometimes be just as important as the meal itself. A kitchen that maintains variety and flavor is often a kitchen that wastes less food. If your goal is to save money, there is no need to buy expensive specialty salts. Basic table salt or a supermarket store brand will meet most everyday cooking and stockpiling needs. Instead of buying a large quantity all at once, simply add 1 or 2 containers to each grocery trip. After a few months, you will have a steady reserve that has had almost no impact on your budget. The biggest mistake is not running out of salt. The biggest mistake is assuming that the cheapest item will always be on the shelf. In reality, salt must still pass through factories, packaging facilities, trucks, and distribution networks, just like every other food product. When fuel, transportation, and production costs rise, even the most ordinary items are affected. Being prepared does not mean filling a garage with hundreds of boxes of food. Sometimes it simply means understanding the value of things that have become so familiar that we no longer pay attention to them. A small container of salt will not make anyone rich, but it can make hundreds of meals more enjoyable, help food be used more efficiently, and help a family stay calmer when life changes unexpectedly. And this is only the foundation, because if salt helps a meal continue, the next item helps the body maintain the strength to get through difficult days. A food that provides protein at such a low cost that many people walk right past it every week without recognizing its true value. Do you currently keep any salt stored at home? Just 1 container or more than that? 4. Dry beans. The low-cost protein source. Many people only remember after meat becomes too expensive. Imagine a 70-year-old retired man named Robert. Every Monday morning, he stops by a grocery store near his home with a fixed budget. His retirement income does not change, but his electricity bill, medications, and food costs seem to go up almost every year. He stops at the meat counter. Ground beef costs a few dollars more than it did on his last visit. He picks up a package, looks at it for a moment, and then puts it back. Instead, he grabs 2 bags of dry beans. Not because he does not like meat. He simply understands one very basic fact. A dinner with meat may keep him full today, but a bag of beans can help feed both him and his wife for multiple meals throughout the week. That is one reason dry beans consistently appear on the shopping lists of many experienced long-term preppers. What is interesting is that we often judge food based on appearance and feeling. Meat looks more appealing. Salmon looks more premium. But when measured by value per dollar, dry beans are one of the most economical sources of protein in the entire supermarket. 1 cup of cooked beans can provide roughly 15 grams of protein, along with a significant amount of fiber, helping people feel full much longer than a meal built primarily around starches. That is why so many families use beans to stretch their budgets, while still maintaining complete and satisfying meals. But the value of beans goes far beyond protein. Fresh meat requires refrigeration. It requires refrigerated trucks. It requires processing facilities. It requires a distribution system that operates continuously. If just one link in that chain runs into trouble, meat prices often react almost immediately. Dry beans are different. No electricity required. No freezer required. No cold storage required. Just a dry corner of the kitchen. That simplicity is what makes dry beans one of the foundations of many emergency food pantries. There is something even more interesting about them. Beans are almost never the first item people rush to buy. While many shoppers head straight for canned meat or frozen foods, bags of beans often sit quietly on the shelf until prices start rising steadily. Until people realize that a protein-rich meal does not necessarily have to begin with meat. When combined with rice, beans create a much more balanced meal foundation than either food provides on its own. A bowl of white rice helps provide energy. A bowl of beans helps provide protein and fiber. 2 very ordinary foods that have fed millions of families around the world for generations. This is not a new trend. It is a solution that has stood the test of time. Another reason many preppers love beans is their shelf life. When stored in a sealed container, kept dry, and protected from insects and moisture, beans can last for many years. Older beans are generally not dangerous. They simply require more cooking time. That is why the smartest approach is rotation. Use the bags you bought first before opening newer ones. Then add 1 or 2 more bags during each grocery trip. After a few months, you can build a substantial reserve with very little impact on the family budget. If you want to save even more money, consider supermarket store brands or shopping at Latin and Asian grocery stores. Prices are often lower while the quality remains very good. However, there is one important thing to remember about dry beans. They require water and they require cooking time. If you stockpile beans without having access to clean water or a way to cook during a power outage, you may own a bag of highly nutritious food that is not necessarily ready to use when you need it. That is why many experienced preppers keep both dry beans and canned beans on hand. Canned beans are convenient when a quick meal is needed. Dry beans are more economical and have a longer shelf life. One does not replace the other. They complement each other. Imagine a week when meat prices continue to rise, or your refrigerator stops working after a storm. The family next door is searching for prepared foods that keep getting more expensive. Meanwhile, you simply open your kitchen pantry. A bag of beans, a little rice, a little salt. It may not be the most luxurious meal, but it is still a hot meal with protein, energy, and enough nourishment to bring the family together around the table. There is something interesting about many traditional cuisines around the world. Beans are rarely the main dish by themselves. They are usually served alongside rice, bread, vegetables, or soup to create a balanced meal and help people stay full longer. Because of this, a bag of beans does more than provide protein. It also helps other ingredients deliver greater value. That is why many home cooks view beans as a foundation ingredient, rather than a standalone dish. When an ingredient can be combined with almost everything in the pantry, it is rarely forgotten. A crisis rarely begins with empty shelves. It usually begins with higher bills, smaller packages of meat, and the feeling that every trip to the grocery store requires a little more thought than before. It is during those very ordinary moments that a bag of dry beans costing just a few dollars becomes one of the smartest investments a kitchen can make. And if beans help solve the protein problem at a low cost, the next item addresses something even more fundamental: how to create dozens of meals on a budget that almost any family can afford. 3. White rice. The food that can create hundreds of meals at an almost unbelievably low cost. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, an adult can consume dozens of kilograms of rice per year when it serves as a primary source of carbohydrates in the diet. That means a large bag of rice is not just another item in a shopping cart. It can become the foundation of dozens or even hundreds of meals at a very low cost. Perhaps because it is so familiar, many people walk right past the rice aisle without giving it much thought. They are willing to spend more money on foods that seem more appealing in the moment, while forgetting that an ordinary bag of rice is often what keeps a kitchen running steadily for months. Imagine Linda, a retiree who lives with her husband. 2 years ago, she could afford to buy beef almost every week. Today, she still buys meat, just less of it. Instead of trying to maintain the same menu while costs continue to rise, she changes the way she cooks. A smaller portion of meat, more beans, more vegetables, and always a pot of hot rice on the table. Not because she wants to eat more rice, but because she understands a very practical reality. Rice does not replace meat, but it helps meat go further. A can of fish, a few eggs, some beans, or leftover vegetables from the previous day can all become a complete and much more economical meal when served with rice. That is one reason rice has been a foundation of so many cultures for thousands of years. What many people do not realize is that a bag of rice creates much more than plain cooked rice. It can become porridge when someone is not feeling well, fried rice for breakfast, rice soup on a cold day, rice mixed with beans, vegetables, or canned fish, or even rice balls to take along during a power outage or when travel becomes necessary. It is the same ingredient, yet it can be used in many different ways, helping meals stay varied even when budgets are limited. White rice also has another important advantage: shelf life. Compared to brown rice, which contains more natural oils and can become rancid more quickly, white rice can maintain its quality for a very long time when stored properly. But buying it correctly does not necessarily mean storing it correctly. Many people place an entire bag of rice directly on a garage floor or against a concrete wall. Yet concrete can retain moisture for long periods and create a less than ideal environment for dry foods. Simply placing rice containers on a low shelf or a basic wooden platform can significantly reduce the risk of moisture affecting the food inside. Another method many people use is dividing rice into several smaller airtight containers instead of repeatedly opening one large container. Every time a lid is opened, more air and moisture enter. Keeping most of the rice sealed at all times helps maintain more stable storage conditions. Some people also place a few dried bay leaves near their storage area or routinely inspect container lids for early signs of insects. However, the most important factors remain the same. Keep the area clean, dry, and sealed. Prevention is always easier than dealing with an infestation after it has already begun. If you want to build a long-term supply, follow a very simple rule: first in, first out. By simply writing the purchase date on the lid with a marker, you will never have to wonder which container of rice has been sitting in storage for years. And do not assume that a low price is always a bargain. A deeply discounted 20-kilogram bag of rice may end up costing you more than it saves if you do not have a suitable place to store it. The best food to stockpile is not the food you buy the most of. It is the food you can store properly and use regularly. Rice also depends on more than just harvests. It is affected by weather, fuel costs, ocean shipping, containers, and global supply chains. A single export restriction imposed by a major producing country can cause rice prices to rise rapidly in many parts of the world. That does not mean we need to panic. It simply serves as a reminder that even the most ordinary items depend on a very large system. If your goal is to save money, consider buying larger bags when they go on sale or choosing supermarket store brands, since the cost per kilogram is often significantly lower. Rather than purchasing huge quantities all at once, many families simply add one bag of rice each month. After a year, they have built a substantial reserve with almost no strain on the household budget. Imagine a week of bad weather that slows deliveries, leaves the meat counter less stocked than usual, and pushes fresh vegetable prices higher. In your kitchen, there is still rice, a few cans of fish, some beans, and a handful of seasonings. Not luxurious meals, but they are still hot meals, providing enough energy and enough nourishment to bring the whole family together around the table. A crisis rarely begins with empty shelves. More often, it begins when you find yourself thinking a little harder every time you look at a grocery bill. And it is during those very ordinary moments that a bag of white rice at a modest price becomes one of the most effective investments a kitchen can have. If beans help solve the protein challenge, rice helps solve an even more fundamental one, creating the greatest number of meals on the smallest budget, while also providing something that is difficult to measure in dollars: the sense of stability and peace of mind it brings to a family. 2. Oats. The simple food that helped millions of families get through difficult times. During World War II, when meat, butter, and many essential foods were rationed, there was one food that continued to appear regularly on the breakfast tables of millions of families in Britain. Not eggs, not sausage, not white bread, a bowl of hot oatmeal. No one considered it a special meal, yet it helped many families begin the day with a full stomach and very little expense. More than 80 years have passed, and the world has changed in many ways. But oats still sit quietly on supermarket shelves at a price that many people barely notice. Perhaps because it is so familiar, oats have become one of the most underrated foods in the supermarket. When measured by value per dollar, a single bag of oats can provide dozens of breakfasts. The cost per serving is often far lower than breakfast cereal, pastries, or a coffee and pastry picked up on the way to work. But the greatest value of oats is not their price. It is the sense of stability they provide. David, a 68-year-old retiree, once said that he always keeps at least 2 containers of oats in his kitchen. Not because he is worried about running out of food, but because he knows that no matter how tight the budget becomes at the end of the month, his family will always have a hot and filling breakfast. A bowl of oatmeal does not require many ingredients. Hot water alone is enough. If you have powdered milk, honey, peanut butter, dried bananas, raisins, or a little cinnamon, you can create many different flavors without having to buy expensive foods. That is also why many experienced long-term preppers do not view oats as an emergency food. They view them as an everyday food. Because the most important principle of smart food storage is not buying huge quantities. It is stockpiling foods that you already use regularly and can rotate continuously. Oats are also far more versatile than many people realize. Beyond traditional oatmeal, they can be soaked overnight to make overnight oats, mixed with powdered milk and dried fruit for a quick meal, ground into flour for simple baking, added to soups for extra thickness, or used in place of breadcrumbs in meatballs and meatloaf. An ingredient that can serve many purposes is always more valuable than one that can be used for only a single dish. One quality of oats that is rarely discussed is their consistency. They do not require precise recipes, complicated techniques, or a lot of kitchen equipment. Whether you add bananas, apples, cinnamon, milk, or simply hot water, the result is usually easy to enjoy. For many older adults, this makes cooking feel much simpler. There is no need to spend a lot of time deciding what to make each morning. Yet there is still a familiar meal that is filling enough to start the day. If your goal is long-term savings, traditional rolled oats are often a more practical choice than instant oatmeal packets with added sugar and flavorings. The cost per serving is lower, the ingredient list is simpler, and they can be used in a wider variety of recipes. Steel-cut oats are also a good option, but they generally require a longer cooking time. During a power outage or when a quick meal is needed, rolled oats become much more convenient. Storage is simple, but it should not be overlooked. Oats absorb moisture and odors very easily. A container stored near onions, garlic, strong spices, or cleaning chemicals may not spoil immediately, but the flavor can change noticeably. With nothing more than an airtight container and a cool, dry place in the kitchen, you can maintain their quality for a long time. Many people also divide oats into smaller containers and write the purchase date on the lid so they can always follow a first-in, first-out system. This approach reduces the need to repeatedly open a large container and helps prevent food from being forgotten in the back of a cabinet. There is another interesting thing about oats. In many situations, people do not turn to oats when supermarket shelves are empty. They turn to oats when life becomes more expensive, when electricity bills go up, when medication costs increase, when buying breakfast outside the home costs several times more than it once did. At that point, an ordinary bag of oats can become a simple way to save dozens or even hundreds of dollars over the course of a year while still maintaining a stable and familiar eating routine. Imagine a morning during a power outage. The coffee maker is not working. The oven is silent. There is no convenience store on the way to work. In the kitchen, all that remains is a bag of oats, some powdered milk, and a spoonful of honey. Just a few minutes later, the entire family still has a hot breakfast that is easy to eat and provides enough energy to start the day. A crisis rarely begins with empty shelves. More often, it begins with small changes in monthly bills and the feeling that every shopping decision requires a little more thought than before. And it is during those very ordinary days that a bag of oats costing just a few dollars proves why it has remained a staple for generations over hundreds of years. If rice helps create more meals at a lower cost, and beans help provide protein, oats offer something different. A breakfast that is dependable, versatile, and filling enough to help you start the day with fewer worries, no matter what may be changing outside your door. 1. Powdered milk. A kitchen can be full of food and still lack nutrition. A kitchen can be full of food and still lack nutrition. That is a problem many people do not recognize when they first begin stockpiling food. They look at the number of cans, bags, and boxes on the shelf and feel reassured. But the more important question is not, how much food do I have? A better question is, will these foods help my body maintain good health for days or even weeks? Powdered milk ranks in this position because it fills a gap that many food pantries overlook: protein, calcium, and the convenience of not requiring refrigeration before it is mixed. A serving of non-fat dry milk, once reconstituted, typically provides about 8 grams of protein and roughly 25 to 30% of daily calcium needs, depending on the brand. Those are not insignificant numbers, especially for older adults, who often eat less but benefit from more consistent nutritional quality. The strength of powdered milk is that it is not just for drinking. You can use it in your morning coffee, hot cocoa, oatmeal, cream soups, baked goods, smoothies, or almost any meal that could benefit from a little added richness and nutrition. When the store is out of fresh milk, when refrigeration is unreliable, or when you do not want to open a large carton and worry about it spoiling, powdered milk becomes a very practical option. In many kitchens, powdered milk rarely takes center stage. It quietly makes coffee smoother, oatmeal creamier, soup richer, and baked goods more flavorful. Foundation ingredients like these rarely attract attention, but when they are missing, an entire meal can lose part of the familiar comfort that people often take for granted. When measured by cost per serving, powdered milk is often far more economical than buying individual bottled beverages or ready-to-drink products. You mix only the amount you need. No waste, no throwing away an entire carton because it was not used in time. For a family trying to control expenses, that small detail can make a significant difference over time. But it is important to remember one key rule. Powdered milk may store well for a long time, but once it is mixed with water, it should be treated like fresh milk. That means using it promptly, keeping it refrigerated whenever possible, and not leaving it at room temperature for extended periods. This is a mistake many new stockpilers tend to overlook. The best way to store powdered milk is to keep it in sealed packaging, away from moisture, direct sunlight, and areas near a hot stove. Once opened, it should be transferred to an airtight container or divided into smaller packages to reduce exposure to air and humidity. Non-fat dry milk generally stores longer than higher fat varieties because it is less likely to become rancid. One very practical tip is not to buy a large quantity right away. Start with a small container. Try it in coffee, oatmeal, porridge, or soup. If the entire family is comfortable with the taste, then begin purchasing a little more over time. Smart stockpiling is not about buying large amounts of foods you have never used before. Smart stockpiling is about buying foods you already know you can use. For older adults, powdered milk offers another everyday benefit. It helps create light meals that are easy to enjoy. A person who is 65 or 75 years old does not always want a large meal. But a warm glass of milk, a bowl of soft porridge, a light cup of cocoa, or a bowl of soup enriched with milk is often much easier to enjoy. One small detail that many families only notice when grandchildren come to visit or unexpected guests stop by is this. A container of powdered milk in the pantry can quickly become a glass of milk for a child, a cup of coffee for an adult, or a bowl of soft porridge for grandparents, without anyone needing to run to the store. It is not a food reserved only for emergencies. It is more like a backup ingredient that quietly supports countless everyday meals. And ingredients that attract the least attention are often the ones that end up being used the most over time. When life is disrupted, what people miss most is not always a large meal. Sometimes it is a familiar morning routine, a warm drink, a soft bowl of food, a touch of creaminess that makes a meal feel less dry and less sparse. Powdered milk is not the most exciting item on a supermarket shelf, but it is one of the foods that can make an emergency pantry less monotonous, more nutritious, and less dependent on refrigeration. A well-prepared kitchen needs more than just a lot of food. It needs foods that help the body continue functioning consistently. And that is why powdered milk deserves the #1 spot. Perhaps the greatest value of being prepared is not the amount of food you own, but the peace of mind it provides. A good kitchen does not need to be filled with expensive items. It simply needs simple, versatile ingredients that can create hot meals for the family when life becomes more expensive or less convenient. Being prepared is not about living in fear. It is about reducing the stress that comes with the unexpected. If you take away just one small change from this video, let it be this: buy smarter, not simply more. I would love to know, Out of the 5 foods we discussed today, which one is always in your kitchen, and which one surprised you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments so everyone can learn from real experiences and practical ideas that truly make a difference.